All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our final Hangout or live on Little Cayman on the group. We're super excited that you guys are all here today. I'm pumped for all the wonderful people we're going to be here sharing their experiences with you guys and talking about what it's like to be part of this amazing project. So interviews and at the end, I'm going to share with you a bunch of footage of the NASA grouper and the aggregation at the end to take questions from all the classrooms. So I just want to remind you at the top left hand of your screen, there should be a little, it's like a chat window. If you click on that, that'll open up a chat window on the right side. And if you have questions, problems, you can use that. To text me or write little questions, and I can help you out that way. And also remember to keep your microphones on mute while we're talking, and then when we're doing the Q&A, we can unmute those. All right? Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I want to first start out by putting a shout out to all of the classrooms that have been participating. It's so important that you guys are here, and I know that it's an extra add-on and that it takes extra work for the teachers and for you students, and we appreciate it so much that you guys come and you do this with us. So thank you very much. I also want to thank all of the researchers that are working on the project from the Department of the Environment and from REEF, who also give me so much of their time and energy to help make these live hangouts for you guys. So I just want to appreciate everyone that works on this. And our first interview today is going to be with Dr. Croy McCoy, who is a researcher scientist with the Department of the Environment. I'm going to have him scooch on over here with me. That's not going on. We just lost audio on that. All right. So this is Dr. Croy McCoy. Croy, do you think you could explain to the class what it is that you do first on this project?
I'm one of the partners in managing the operations of it. It sort of started out small, but it expanded. The expertise we source with REEF and other institutions such as Scripps Institute of Oceanography, and it's become a major project for us and a major success also.
So have you been on it since the beginning?
Yeah.
So how did that start? How did it start for you?
Well, it started out with a fisherman discovering it. And at the time, no one knew of the aggregation in Lower Cayman and the West End.
Right.
So we came over, and me and a colleague, Bill Bush, and dove it. And it was amazing that these fish still existed on the reefs here, because they've been pretty much eliminated at all the spawning aggregation sites in the whole region. And started from there trying to do a population assessment with everything.
Can you guys hear okay out there, or do you need to speak up a little? Is that okay? All right, good.
And REEF was visiting the island at the time, and we reached out to them, and they started helping us from then. That partnership sort of merged and grew after that, because they had the expertise we needed to do the work, and sort of expanded after that, and we've become partnership ever since.
Yeah.
And the project keeps growing, and as we understand these animals by doing the science better, we are able to make decisions or give advice to the government on their management strategies, which has proven, it took 18 years almost, or 15 years of doing the work to actually make those recommendations that we know that should work, and it's proven to be a success, because we are seeing them more in our reefs. The population numbers are growing across all three islands, basically, because in Grand Cayman, there's a lot of juveniles on the reef, and that's like spillover from.
So can I a follow-up question? Does that mean that by protecting this aggregation here, we're also actually helping the other aggregations on the BRAC and on Grand? How do you think that correlates?
There is evidence of that. I think the protection measure or management strategies that we implemented has been fruitful, in the sense that we've seen the BRAC population move from approximately 500 to almost 2,000 over the last 18 years. And on Grand, where it was a very remote chance you saw one,
Right.
you start seeing a lot of them, which is the juvenile, smaller guys.
Yeah.
But
It's so
eventually they
exciting.
grow up.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have a population over there that's sort of lagging behind the sister island. But it's seemingly as the lower the numbers, the longer it takes for you to actually replenish the system.
Sure. Wow. So this has really become a big community event. Like a lot of people are involved in this, right? Are there other local people that work with you guys?
Yeah. It's the project itself costs a lot of money to run.
Sure.
And for us to be able to do this work, it wouldn't have been possible without the partnership we have, whether it's in the local resorts that offer, lodging and other stuff, and usage of the docks.
Yeah, I mean,
tanks from,
as I've been here, I mean, the dive shops have been really involved, and in fact, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, we got a phone call from one of the dive shops because one of the Nassau had been bitten by a shark, and we rushed out there to get it and try to take care of it. But it does seem that everyone has sort of come together around this project.
Yeah, and on the island of Little Cayman, it has become a community project in a sense. I mean, you have to work with the community to make things work either way.
Right.
And they have really embraced it and given all the help that they can, and making this a reality and making it a success story.
Sure. So maybe in addition to this population growing, the awareness of what this project is and the importance of the Nassau might be growing into the other islands would also be contributing to the increasing numbers. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I guess you could call it compliance, trying to make it work.
Right.
That's half of your job in any protection measures and legislation.
Sure, you can put protections out there, but if they're not being followed, then they're not that useful.
Yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to the fishermen. This used to be a part of their whole during this, we used to call it the grouper season.
Yeah.
And then for them to allow us to do the science and better understand what's going on there and how we can put in management strategies and stuff it's at a sustainable level where we don't interfere with them while they're having babies.
Right.
And then the rest of the year they can fish them. And that has really blossomed. And I got to thank the local population of mainland and Sister Island, Little Cayman,
and Cayman Brac. Yeah. So. Could you tell us and tell our audience a little bit about the cultural importance of the Nassau? How did it be? What role has it played in the Caymanian culture?
Well, for one, it's an iconic species throughout the region. And in the Caymans, it was a cultural thing to fish it.
You speak up just a little bit.
It was a cultural thing just to fish it during those winter months when they spawn. It was part of it was a deep-rooted heritage that these people, they look forward to it.
So when did that happen? Was there a certain time of year? Was it this time of year that was, or was it all year long that it was?
No, just during the winter months. Mainly, as a kid growing up in Cayman Brac, it was December. But over the years, it has moved into the January, February, and March area.
Yeah.
But, it was almost like a Christmas dinner, I guess you can call it.
Sure. In the States, we have turkey on Thanksgiving, something similar. So how was it? I mean, I've seen grouper prepared a number of ways, but I've heard that there's a special way that Caymanians prepared the grouper traditionally. Can you explain? It was salted?
That was way back, probably before I was born.
So what
you didn't have a fridge.
Right.
But they mainly used to love the roe.
The eggs, right?
That was a favorite amongst Caymanian culture.
Sure.
And then mainly fried fish and fritters is something that's deep-rooted in all of Caymanian society.
So having them in the winter correlates with them being pregnant and then getting the eggs so that makes more sense now.
They aggregate and, they're pregnant, they're hungry. It's like fishing in a barrel.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Realize at some point, if you take all the mothers going to the maternity ward, what are you going to have for a population?
Sure.
So you stop you chop the population growth off right there and start stripping it back. Right?
Yeah.
So as long as we can make them have the babies, and always put it, because spawning aggregation are the maternity wards of their seeds. I mean,
Yes.
a lot of species go there. I did a year-long study, and every month there was different species, going there and having, spawning.
Yeah, there was a big project out there that was going out every month.
Yeah,
was it?
I led that project.
What was that called?
Coming Home.
Yeah,
you're just building evidence of larval entrainment that do come back as current drifters that model or follow the larvae.
Right.
And per se, about 70% of them
came back here. Wow.
We've released some drifters on this and the little caiman that completely almost loop the island and come right back within a half mile of where day 32.
Yeah.
And
day 32.
Yeah, and they settle out between 32, 34, and 4 days. They're back on the reefs as little baby fish. And
so what Dr. McCoy is talking about is when the groupers spawn, they choose this day a few days after the full moon. We don't know how they choose it, but we think that they choose the day when the currents and the temperature are just right, so that when they release their gametes, the currents are more likely to bring them back to Little Cayman, bring them back to shore rather than going off, right?
One of the things that we did in that study too, we released them prior to spawning, and they sort of went left, right, center,
right?
Just very randomly. Mm-hmm. But on the night of spawn, like these little eddies that go in circles, sort of moved on the shelf, and then that's how they know that. We have no idea.
Right.
And the larvae get entrained into that and keep it near shore. So that was one of the.
So you guys, this is still a pretty big mystery for scientists, and I'm hoping that some of you are going to, in the future, try to answer some of those questions, because you're eventually are the ones that are going to be continuing to protect the reef here and this amazing natural resource that you have.
Yeah, as a Caymanian, I hope I inspire a lot of these students to have a career in that. And it's very rewarding in the sense that, you're doing something for your country.
Yeah,
I mean,
and your community, really.
Yeah, these islands are small.
Yeah.
The ocean's our backyard. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people look out there and see a wide, big open ocean with bountiful, but it stops at the shelf edge. So it's a narrow insular shelf.
Right.
And all our fish populations, that they live there.
Sure.
So it can easily be fished out in
sense.
But studying these animals, understanding their behavior, their reproductive cycle, and everything else, we can better manage them where we can still fish them and still let them continue the next generation.
Yeah.
As how humans have kids and go on and on.
Right. And we're hoping through this work that you guys are able to start to create your own connection to your resources here, to the reef and to the Nassau grouper. Well, thank you so much for being here, Dr. McCoy.
I love being here.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Thanks, you guys. So next up on our list, I'm going to have a young scientist who is working with REEF join us and talk a little bit about what it's been like for her and her journey on her way to becoming a scientist. I know that some of you are probably thinking about what you're going to do in the future, and the pathway to being a scientist isn't always so clear. It might look different for different people. So I'm going to invite Sophie Costa over.
Hi, guys.
All right. So Sophie, could you first tell us a little bit about how you became involved in science?
Yeah, absolutely. So similar to you guys, when I was growing up, I always was tuning in and watching a lot of different scientists. I used to love those old Jacques Cousteau videos.
Yeah.
But growing up, I was never, quite positive how you reach this stage. And so doing research, especially once I got to high school and college level, that's sort of when I started to develop an understanding of how you actually go down this path. So I went to undergraduate school in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh.
So pretty far away from the ocean. I'm not sure how many of you know where that is.
But it's not on the ocean.
It is not on the ocean. It's on a very large river, the Mississippi River, but still not quite that marine habitat that I was always drawn to.
Yeah.
And then once I graduated from undergraduate with an environmental science degree, I moved to Belize and took an internship working with a nonprofit down there. And so that was really my first large work experience working within the marine world.
What did you do on that project? So if that was your first big one, did it spark something for you? What were you doing?
So I had always been interested in the scientific research side, but my position there was actually science communications. So I did a little bit of communications.
What does that mean, science communications?
Yeah, that's a good question. So science communications, it's basically a field that bridges the gap between scientists, because I don't know if any of you have tried to read a scientific paper, but there's probably a lot of terms that, most people aren't aware of. So I used my scientific background and then sort of translated almost in a way the research that we had going on at the organization so that the general public could understand what we were doing.
And in a sense, that's kind of what we're doing right now, right?
Exactly.
Part of this education process that we're doing is taking this scientific research and making it understandable for the rest of us. Because I've had a few conversations over these years with scientists that start talking and I don't know what they're talking about. Now I do after, a few years, but it can become a barrier to people understanding the science, right?
Exactly. And something that I always enjoyed was, when you're doing scientific research, it's easy to sort of get into this hole and, you're only focused on the research. But what I really enjoy about the communication side is being able to interact with people like you guys and teach y'all all about the science that we have going on. So it sort of bridges, my two passions of working alongside people, but then also being able to do scientific research as well.
And I heard Sophie use the word passion. And I think that that's a really important component. When you guys are deciding where you're moving forward, it's important to follow that passion. And I think it's so awesome that you've done that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I sort of like Todd was saying, I've always known that I was drawn to the ocean, but then wasn't quite sure how to bridge my passion with my career. So that's why when I was choosing my undergraduate school, I ended up actually going to a school more based on the school as opposed to marine biology. But I was able to take internships and use the support of my professors in order to begin diving into this field. So
that's really cool. And the Department of the Environment also offers internships. I know that people have done, I've met a number of young scientists that do work with the DOE in that regard. So, okay, that's really interesting. How did you become involved with REEF, and what is your role with REEF?
So once my internship was over in REEF, in Belize, then I was just looking for other opportunities. I had gone home and did an education internship, and I had heard about REEF prior, just working in the Caribbean. And I've always, long observed the Grouper Moon Project and especially the invasive lionfish project. So it was sort of on my radar. And then once I left, I was just looking for other opportunities, and REEF had the internship available. And so that's how I ended up getting connected with REEF. And I've been there since May now.
So it sounds like these internships are a pretty important part of the pathway towards becoming a scientist.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for me, especially because I didn't have the marine research experience in my undergrad, these internships were a way for me to sort of dive into the field. And I've gained such a variety of experience based on the different internships that I've taken. So I've had experience with communications, education, outreach, and scientific research. So I have a pretty diverse background, but the internships are the way that I was able to actually get sort of my foot in the door in this field.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Does anyone out there have a question for Sophie? Maybe you're considering becoming a scientist, or you'd like to pick her brain a little bit about how she's come here. You're welcome to raise your hand and ask a question, or if it comes up a little bit later in the talk, you can also just let me know in the chat and we'll come to you, and I'll bring Sophie back over and you guys can ask her questions. Does that sound good?
I'll stick around.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Sophie. Okay, cool. All right. Next up, we have a local Caymanian celebrity is going to join us today and talk a little bit about his experience on the Grouper Moon project. So I'm going to invite Joe Avery to sit here. There we go.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Joe. So maybe you could introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about how you became involved in this project.
I'm Joe Avery. I work at Cayman 27 News, and I've always enjoyed diving and science, and I work as a reporter, so I kind of feel like I want to report on things that I care about and know about and find personally interesting. So I've always been gravitated to, you know, the animals, the sciences, things like that. So, you know, anytime there's a story with the DOE, I'm like eager to jump on it. And when I met Dr. Croy McCoy a couple of years ago, I was fascinated by this Grouper Moon project, and I really wanted to be a part of it. And last year, I came out for the first time. I met Todd, I met Dr. Bryce, and a lot of the REEF folks last year. And now I'm back for a second year, hoping to do even some more better work, right?
So it's so awesome that you're here. Thank you for being here. Were you always interested in marine life, or is this something that's happened as you became a reporter and it kind of sparked you? What was that? How did you get there?
It was really, you know, I grew up landlocked. So for most of my life, I lived in Nebraska where, you know, we don't even really have any water at all, you know, like except for you go to the lake once a year or whatever, you know. But when I moved to Cayman, I really felt it was an opportunity. I'd learned how to dive a few years prior to coming to work for Cayman 27. And, you know, when you see that kind of fragile environment out there, it's something that not a lot of people understand until they've been down there.
Right.
And so coming to Cayman 27 and having that, as Dr. McCoy said, as your backyard, you know, I just want to take the camera out there and do something with it, right? So it just kind of made sense for me. It wasn't really a conscious thing. Like
I'm
not going to be an environmental journalist per se, but whenever I needed a story, like I could, you know, bring something down there, and even if it's, you know, I found a 3-flippered turtle one time and was able to do a story on that. You know, and ask the, you know, colleagues at the DOE, you know, is this rare? You know, and
we might have to share that on the blog.
They can survive. They can survive, you know, with 3 flippers, and I've seen quite a few subsequently that have, you know, missing limbs and things like that. So it's one of those things that inspires other people. Like if a turtle can go on and live its life and survive, then you've got no excuse as a person to, you know, not be able to push past the setbacks.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Last year when you were here, we talked a little bit about you working with the lionfish invasion, and I know that's some of you guys, especially those of you that are here in the Cayman Islands, know a bit about the lionfish invasion. But could you share what you've done on that and how you've been involved?
Well, I've just been involved in a participatory manner. We have an organization called Cayman United Lionfish League, and they hold quarterly tournaments, and you compete to bring in the most fish. And I can be quite competitive, so I've been trying to bring in the most fish or the biggest fish and things like that. But really, the main thing is to get them off the reefs. Once you hear the stories about how bad they are for juvenile fish, like these little grouper eggs that re-recruit to the reef, the lionfish are there to eat that stuff up, the little babies.
Yeah.
You know, so they're cutting these grouper down before they have a chance to get mature and take part in the Grouper Moon spawning. You know? So the lionfish, they're not from here. They're gorgeous fish. I love to look at them, but I prefer to put them in a bucket and get them out of the water if I can.
Yeah, that's so cool. Thank you so much for doing that. Does anyone out there have a question for Joe before we move on to our next person?
I see some people I know on some of the cameras. I've interviewed you. I'm looking at you there.
All right, so does anyone from Cayman Prep have a question that they want to ask? No? Okay, hold on. Let me unmute your camera. We need to unmute your... Is Kathleen there? Can she help you with that? There we go. Oh, no, that's the Scott Bay. Oh, there we go. Scott Bay, hold on one second.
Hi.
Right. So, you guys have a question for Joe?
So the lionfish invasion project, since it started, have you seen any increase or decrease in the numbers, or has it remained like constant?
Well, a couple of years ago, the numbers seemed, or a couple of years ago, there were plentiful lionfish out there. You could find them all over. But maybe toward the end of 2017, I personally saw the population kind of decline a little bit, and they were harder to find in terms of shooting the fish and getting them out of the water. So I went from getting maybe 10 to 15 pounds every time I went out to getting maybe 2 or 3 pounds. But in recent months, the last 4 or 5 months, I've noticed that I'm getting more like 7 or 8 pounds. So it seems to be kind of creeping back up. And I think a lot of that reason is that people may have not seen as many, so they don't want to go diving and take their spear and their equipment. So maybe that's given them a chance to hang on. But I did do a story on it for Cayman 27 last week, and I interviewed Bradley Johnson, who's a research officer with the DOE. And he said that, they don't really put much stock in those short-term trends because like on the Grouper Moon project with the 18-year data set, they're looking to establish a big amount of data on this before they say, oh, the population's going away or the population's getting back. I mean, I can only really talk as a non-scientist, to what I see out there, but in terms of long-term science, they really don't know what is going to be next because this is a new thing, it's unscripted, as Bradley Johnson told me in my story the other day, and we just have to kind of watch it play out.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bradley. Awesome. Bradley Johnson, wonderful scientist. One of the many great DOE guys. All right. Guys and gals. Does anyone at Spot Bay have a question for Joe? I'm going to mute. And Kathleen there, she's a good lionfish hunter too. She's won a couple of call tournaments. Kathleen. I want to give credit where credit is due. Absolutely. All right. Spot Team Bay. Salt Shaker. Team Salt Shaker. If Spotway has a question, you guys can unmute. If not, we'll go back over to, there we go. All right. Good morning, Spotway.
Good morning.
Hello, Cayman Brack. It's so good to see you guys today.
How long does it take to be a scientist?
Oh, that's a great question. And that's an excellent question. I'm going to
Should I hop out of the seat?
Yeah, just for a second.
I'm going to hop out of the seat.
But stay here because we're going to pull you back. Sophie, would you maybe come over and answer that? That's an excellent question, Spot Bay. I'm going to bring a scientist on to give their input on that.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm back. That's a wonderful question. I think it kind of depends on what level of science you want to be at. Because honestly, if you think about it, you guys are also scientists. Maybe just not, don't have your doctorate degree, but even you guys, you're out doing science each and every day. Just by attending this, you're trying to gain scientific knowledge. So you guys could consider all of yourselves the scientists as well.
That's seriously, you guys, you really could. Yeah. You guys know a lot.
But if we're talking more about the doctorate level, so that takes, depending on the person. So basically the track is you go to high school, then undergraduate college, and then after graduating from there, you move on to graduate school.
So undergraduate would be 4 years. Mm-hmm. So that's another 4 years of school. Then graduate school is another 2 or 3.
Depending on if you're getting your master's. So your PhD can take anywhere from, depending on how quickly you can get through it, on average it takes between 5.5, but sometimes can take as many as 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it helps if it's your passion.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's a great question.
It is a great question.
Does anyone else out there have a question for us? And I see we have another class that's joined us, Mr. Rogers' class. It's still good to see you guys. Do you have a question for either Sophie here, our scientist working with REEF, or with Mr. Joe Avery, who works with Cayman 27, who's here? Hey guys, do you have a question?
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to head back over to the high school. Thank you so much. I think that they had another question for Mr. Avery. We're going to unmute you. There. Oh. So if Kathleen's class can unmute their microphone, that would be
Good. Okay.
There you go. All right.
Okay.
So you have a question?
Yeah, I have one. In your experience, what would you say is the most difficult part about lionfish culling?
Oh,
Oh, well,
you've done a fair amount of lionfish culling.
yeah, I think the most difficult part about it would be to get to the fish, right? Because let's say that you go to Sunset House, right? You know, everybody dives at Sunset House. Everybody dives at the popular shore diving sites. But you know, it's a big island out there, Grand Cayman. There's a lot of, you know, shoreline, and there's not people diving at every spot. So number one for me, to help me get to the lionfish, I had to get a little boat to get there because, you know, if I'm culling at Sunset House and, you know,
there may not be many there.
Yeah, 5 or 10 other people have gone culling there that week. You know, the likelihood of finding fish is pretty low. So if you want to get a lot of fish, you got to go to where the fish are, and usually that would be to where the divers aren't, which makes lionfish culling so fun because I feel like I'm going to dive sites that are very infrequently utilized, and I'm seeing things that people have never seen before. You know, like, so I feel getting off the beaten path is a real help for finding lionfish and getting them off the reef.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. All right. Thank you for joining us. It was awesome to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have another guest that's going to talk to us now. This person has literally grown up on the Grouper Moon project. Ever since she was just a tiny baby, she's come here every year. And she is actually the daughter of Dr. Christy Pattengill Simmons and Dr. Bryce Simmons, and her name is Tatum. And she's gonna come tell you guys a little bit about what it's been like growing up on this big, cool conservation project. So can you tell everyone who you are, how old you are?
My name is Tatum. I'm 13 years old, and I live in California.
Okay. And your parents have been part of this project since the beginning?
Yeah, they have.
So that means you've been part of the project since the beginning?
I've come here every single year of my life since before I was 1.
Wow, since before you were 1.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about what it's been like for you growing up on a project like this?
So it's been very entertaining, and it's a very big learning experience. So I've been doing everything from helping the scientists to annoying the scientists.
Oh, so what have you done to help? What are some things you do to help the scientists?
I was certified scuba diver.
Awesome.
I became a certified scuba diver 2 years ago or something like that.
So how old do you have to be to get certified? 11?
10.
10? All right, you guys. It's time to get out there and get certified.
So I became a certified scuba diver, and I started doing fish surveys, which helps.
So what is a fish survey?
So basically when you go out, either snorkeling or diving, you basically record the fish you see and how many you see of them, a ballpark.
And how does that help the scientists here? Do you know?
So you then put it into a big database, and it helps them see where the fish are and where they are during the year, and it helps
how many of them there are.
Yeah.
It's important for us to know how many there are if we're going to, you know, protect them, right? So it's called the Citizen Science Project. And it's one of the big projects that REEF works on. And I've seen lots of people out there doing those surveys, which is really awesome. Maybe you could tell us about a way that you've been less helpful.
Well, well, first of all, I like to, when I was younger, we always had to, now that I'm older, I don't really have to have anyone stay with me, but I have 2 other siblings, one older and one younger. And
so hold on one second. You guys, so every year you take the time off from school and come down here.
Yes, we do.
And so even when you were little, your folks are out there doing the research. What are you doing while they're out there?
Well, usually we used to have someone had to stay back from every dive. and well, different people would switch off, but
to watch you guys.
Yeah, and we would go swimming, we would go snorkeling, we would sit around and do nothing. But there wasn't really like Netflix is not really a thing.
Right. So there wasn't TV for you to watch. You had to find other ways to entertain yourself.
Yeah.
Like what?
Sandcastles.
Sandcastles.
Catching fish in conch shells.
What kind of fish would you catch in conch shells?
Little tiny sergeant majors and crabs.
Yeah, I remember seeing them in the shallows for hours with conch shells strategically located in different positions to capture some of the fish. And what about sea beans? What's that?
Sea beans are beans that wash up from, I believe, the Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're seeds that fall out of trees, right?
Yeah, they wash up here. They don't seem very like, oh, it's like sea bean. But they actually, there's two kinds of them around, like the ones we collect are two kinds. And they show up down in like seaweed patches, and they're not common, so it's fun to find them.
So do you have a pretty big collection?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a few sea beans.
Yeah.
Does anyone out there have a question for Tatum about what it's been like growing up on a project like this? And if you can't think of your question now and you think of it later, you guys can just give me a wave and I'll unmute you and we can talk to her about what it's been like. What do you think has been the biggest learning experience for you on this project?
I've definitely learned what it takes to be a scientist. Like these people, they get up at like 6 in the morning and they start planning their dive, and they wake me up really early, and then they go on their first dive at around 8:30, and they get back and they have lunch, and then they go on an afternoon dive, and then they get back and they talk and count their fish and log it all, and then they go on another dive.
And then they don't get back until 8. Right?
So then they're gone all day.
Yeah. And so you get to see that from a different perspective as a child, not involved in it, but watching that happen. Yeah. And so you've seen it takes quite a bit of work for something like this to happen, right? A lot of people chipping in, like you. Right? Awesome. That is so cool. Does anyone out there have a question for Tatum? Anyone there have a question? Yeah, in the back.
Come in, right. Come here. What's the question? Come here.
Oh, I can't hear you. Hi there, what's your question?
How did you learn to swim?
Excellent question. So the question was, how did you learn to swim, Tatum?
I started off, I learned to swim a while back, but I basically kept trying and tried.
How old were you? Very young.
3.
3?
3.
That's when you started?
Yep.
And it was practice.
Yeah, it was a lot of throwing myself in the water.
And other people throwing you in the water too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like with anything, it takes lots of practice. And the first times you're doing it, it might seem like, oh my gosh, this is something I'm never going to be able to do, right? But then you keep trying anyway. And now she's 13 years old and she's diving already, which all of you guys could be doing as well. Super cool. Thanks for that question. I see another question over there. Does the teacher, Mr. Rogers, want to call the next one?
Afternoon. How did you learn to fish?
Say that again.
How did you learn to fish?
Did you learn to fish? How did you learn to fish?
I learned to fish by my dad.
Your dad did?
Yeah, my dad. He took me out one day and.
Here?
Probably. I would. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
But I was young.
Do you fish?
Yes.
Do you fish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Do you like fishing?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah, I learned to fish with my dad too when I was just a little kiddo and growing up in Florida. Thanks for that question. We can take one more question from your class. And then we're going to have another person come up here.
What's the deepest you ever been?
Say that again real loud.
What's the deepest you ever been?
Okay, good question. What's the deepest you've ever been?
Ooh, I have dived down. So you have an age limit of basically your age is how deep you can dive. So I'm technically only allowed to dive down to 50 feet underwater, but I have dove down to about 90 feet.
There you go. Thanks so much for your questions, you guys. And why don't you guys all thank Tatum for taking time out and talking to you guys. Thank you so much, Tatum. It was cool that you got to share your experience. And if you have another question for that comes up later, just let me know. The next person that I'm going to call up here is one of the main scientists that's working on the project, and her name is Dr. Christy Pattengill-Simmons. So I'm going to have you scooch over, and I'm going to have Christy come over. And Christy's going to share a little bit about what's happened so far on the Grouper Moon project this year. And then we have some amazing video clips that we're going to share with you guys of the grouper aggregation hole. All right, so hi.
Hi.
Could you reintroduce yourself to everyone and then talk about the project really just started getting going yesterday, and maybe tell us a little bit about what you're seeing so far.
So hi everybody, I'm Christy and I'm Tatum's mom. But I'm also, as Todd said, one of the lead scientists on the Grouper Moon project, and I work really closely with Dr. Croy McCoy, who you met earlier, and all of our other partners here on this project. As Todd said, we have just really gotten going. So it's 2 days after full moon now, right? So full moon was Tuesday.
So what does it mean that you get going? So 2 days ago you started getting going. What does that look like?
The very first day, the day of full moon, we went in, we did a dive, like Tatum was telling you. It's a lot of planning and talking about what we're going to do, and then we actually go out and do the diving. And we went out to check out the site because we never know. Did the fish get the message? Have they left the reef? Are they on their way there? And sure enough, when we got out there, we found some fish, a lot of fish, probably over 1,000 fish are out there. But we'll expect many more. So over the next, yesterday and today, they're continuing to move and leave their home spot and head out to that aggregation site. And then they'll stay there for about 10 days. And during that 10 days, we will go out 3 times a day, like Tatum said, and we do a whole bunch of different research. And Todd will probably be showing you some of the different things we do. I think Bryce the other day, one of the other scientists, showed you some of the tools that we use, like the tags, those white spaghetti pieces that we showed you. Those are now, there's some fish out there at the spawning site that have those. Yesterday, our team put in a bunch of them into the fish. So this morning and all day today and tomorrow, we're going to be spending time counting how many tags we see in those fish.
Okay, so your guys are going to be diving a lot, counting, measuring, taking film and video. They haven't spawned yet, right?
Right, that's right.
When are you expecting them to spawn?
Well, so in the past, they've spawned anywhere starting from 2 to 3 days after full moon. So that'd be right about now, to as late as 8 days after full moon, and anywhere in between. I think based on, and we can kind of tell when we see the fish start to, the females get really big and
their bellies
they look like they're all full. And they also change color. And I think Todd's going to show you some pictures of that. And as they get more looking like that black and white, almost they look like they're wearing a tuxedo. They get very fancy. And as they get all black and white, we know that that's going to be when they're going to spawn.
So their behavior literally changes when they're getting ready to do it.
Yes.
So that's your guys' kind of cue.
So that's why it's important for us to go out every day. We can't guess when the spawning's going to happen, and we don't want to miss it because it's really important for us to document when it happens and how much it happens. And so we want to make sure we don't miss it. So we're looking for those visual cues, and in the days leading up to the spawning, we're doing some of that, assessing how many are there, how they're behaving, and that kind of stuff. So
that's awesome. Are you guys, do you want to see some cool video of the NASA out there? Give me a thumbs up if that sounds good. Yeah? All right. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Christy.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, so let me just get situated. I have a bunch of really cool stuff to show you. Thank you for your patience. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to show you guys, let's see here. Here is what it looks like out there on the aggregation site when they're all there. All right. Stop. That one didn't work. There we go. All right. Here you go. So you might notice a few fish there. We're going to watch this and see if you can count how many there are. Oh, there's one of our scientists out there taking video. All right, so there's one clip. I'm going to show you one other clip. All right, here's your next clip. And then we'll take some questions after this one, and then I'll show you some more. So this is actually the beginning of a ribbon of fish. There are so many of them that when you're diving, it looks like a stream, almost a river or a highway of fish. And there are so many out there, it's incredible. And you can see they're in that color phase that Dr. Christie was talking about. Black on top, white on the bottom. They look kind of like they're wearing tuxedos, and then you'll see them spawn. That's what it looks like when they're out there spawning. All right. Okay, so that's what it looks like when all those fish finally get together out there, and on that one night or those 2 nights that they decide that they're going to spawn, they all get together, they change their color like that, and you saw how they went up together. It would usually be one female and several males will go up into the water column together, and they'll release their gametes. And so when you start that dive, you can see for 80 feet maybe. But then after they've spawned and after they've released all their gametes, you can only see maybe a couple of feet in front of your face because it's filled with gametes. It's really kind of amazing. Does anyone out there have a question about that video or about what it looks like out there when they're spawning? All right, so let's go over to the high school. You need to unmute your mic. All right, yeah, question.
Are there any predators towards the group or the group of eggs during the spawning?
Yeah, well, take a guess. Who do you think would be out there?
Sharks.
Sharks, right? So grouper live, that's an excellent question. Grouper live at the top of the food chain. They're called what we call an apex predator. There aren't too many things that can eat them because they're quite big. But one of the things that will eat a grouper besides a human is a shark. And oftentimes when we're out there diving on the aggregation, you'll see reef sharks circling around the huge ball of Nassau that are out there. And every once in a while, you'll see one jump in and try to get one. And in fact, I have some video that we took a couple of years of a shark going in and trying to catch one of the grouper. He wasn't successful, but it'll give you an idea of what that looks like. So that definitely can happen. And it does happen, but it's not something that I see a whole lot of. Do you guys have any other question about that? Okay. Spot Bay, do you guys have any questions about what we've seen so far? All right, so we'll need to unmute your, there we go.
You're ready.
All right, Spot Bay.
Why is there just one female going up and like other males going with just that one female?
That's a great question. I don't actually know the technical reason for that. I do know that they'll go up and spawn multiple times, and part of what they're trying to do is to mix up their genetics as much as possible. And when they mix up their genetics like that, it helps to ensure that you have a really healthy population of fish. And each one of those females, can you guys guess, do you remember how many eggs each of those females has? Does anyone have a guess how many they might have in their belly? Yeah, in the back, what do you think? Oh, you got muted again. There we go.
1,000, I think.
1,000. Nope. Who has another idea?
100.
100. Wrong direction. Higher.
100.
Higher.
100,000.
Million. We think that they may have up to 1 million gametes inside of them. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? All right. Pop A, do you guys have another question? Okay. Why don't we, I'm gonna mute you, and I'm gonna share another video with you. If you were on the live feed yesterday, you saw we talked a little bit about a cleaning station, and I have some video taken of one of the cleaning stations, and this is actually a tiger grouper. And we saw a tiger grouper yesterday on the underwater dive. And you're gonna see the tiger grouper just sitting, hunkering down on the ocean floor, and all these gobies swimming all around them, cleaning them off. So hold on one second, I'm gonna pull up that video for you to see. You're also gonna notice a color change is gonna happen in this video, and we'll talk about what that means. All right, here we go. Oh wait, this is the Nassau, not the tiger. I'll show you the tiger after this. And watch his color change. You can see on the side of his body, all that, it turned white. I'm gonna rewind that, and I'm gonna let you look again. I want you to notice the color on the side of the Nassau. So right now it's pretty dark, and then as it goes on, it's gonna lighten up. All right, and I'm gonna pull up one more video of a cleaning station for you guys to see. Hold on one second while I pull up that other video. And this is the tiger grouper cleaning station. All right, here we go. Watch what comes out of his mouth. Oh, what? You can see him crawling all over, getting inside the gills, getting in his mouth, or her. Like it could be a her. Okay. So what you guys saw there were two examples of cleaning stations. Cleaning stations are this amazing thing that happens on a reef. that we've only recently come to understand. Both of those fish, grouper, are predators, and they'll eat pretty much any other fish that they can get their mouth around, right? But when they're sitting at a cleaning station, they have an agreement with each other. We don't know how that agreement happens, but they understand that when they're there, they have a truce. It's like a timeout. And what happens is the smaller fish, who would usually get eaten by them, will go around all over the group or all over the fish and clean off the detritus, which is like dead skin, and any bacteria that builds up on the fish. And it's really, really important part of fish on the reef maintaining their health. And especially after the Nassau have been out there spawning for about 8 days, they're super tired. They haven't been eating. They've been working really hard. They'll all go to cleaning stations when they're done and spend time getting cleaned. Does anyone out there have a question about either of those videos? You might have noticed on the first one, oh, let's go over to Spot Bay. All right. You can unmute your microphone. There we go. Hi, Spot Bay.
Hi. Hi.
Hey, guys.
How does a NASA grouper change color?
That's a great question. The question is, how does a Nassau grouper change color? So Nassau grouper have what we call chromatophores, which is a big fancy word for a cell that has pigment in it. And pigment is color, okay? And in those cells, they can control the color. It's a lot like an octopus, although octopus are able to dramatically change their color in lots of ways. An octopus can actually change the texture of their skin. But it's the same idea. They have these cells that are called chromatophores, and inside them is pigment, is color. And they can change that color. They can condense it all till it gets really small, and that makes them look white. Or they can spread out that pigment, and it'll make them look black. Or they can do anything in between there. So you'll see variations of white to black, and even a brown color. And does anyone know why they change color? Does anyone have a guess? No, not sure. Yeah. What do you think? Right here, Spot Bay.
To trick prey.
To trick the prey. Is that your guess?
Yes.
Does anyone else have a guess?
I think they use it for camouflaging.
For camouflage. Awesome. Does anyone else have another guess? Why might they want to change color? Did you see what they did when a diver came up close to him? What did he do? He swam away and he changed his color, right? Yeah. So what happens is they use their color for a number of things. You guys were correct. Number one, they use their color for camouflage. So when you saw on the aggregation site, you saw that they were black on top and white on the bottom. Well, that's a camouflage so that if you look down, you're not going to see them because they just look black. And if you look from the bottom and they look white, they're gonna blend with the top of the water. So that helps camouflage them. They can change to that bar coloration when they're in the reef. And then they can change to a much lighter coloration when they're on the sand. So camouflage is one important aspect. And the other one is communication. They literally communicate with each other through changing their colors. So as we talked about, Nassau grouper, normally they don't hang out together in a big group. They hang out by themselves. And if another Nassau was to come into that Nassau's territory, he would change, or she would change her color to tell that Nassau, you better take off. I don't want you here. And they'll do that to divers as well. So when they're upset or stressed, or they're trying to tell someone you're in my space, they'll use their color to tell that as well. Does anyone else have a question about either of those videos? Okay, do you want to see one more? I got one more video for you. Yesterday we saw a really cool spiny lobster out on the reef, and I found this awesome video that I want to share with you guys of that. So let me pull that up for you. All right. Here is our lobster. Take a look. And he seems very interested and curious about the diving. Watch what he does. All right. I'm gonna. So that was a spiny lobster out there, and that was actually taken last year on the aggregation site. He was down on the ocean floor, and I think they're really amazing. I've got one more video I'm going to share, and then I can take any final questions, and we'll go. And this is just another video of what it looks like when they're out there spawning, which they'll be doing maybe tonight or maybe tomorrow night. All right, here we go. Take a look. That is a lot of fish. You saw that one change color pretty fast. All right. All right, you guys. Today I'm going to post more video of the spawning site of the aggregation itself on the grouper blog. I encourage you to go on there. All of your teachers have the web link for that. I'll be posting on there all week, all sorts of cool, interesting things. You guys can comment on any of them, and I will comment right back to you. If I didn't get to answer anything that you wanted to hear today, you can email me. I'd be happy to email you back and tell you anything that you want to know. I really appreciate all you guys being there. I know that Cayman Prep has to go, so I want to thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. It really means a lot to have you guys here. Thank you so much. All right, and then let's see, Cayman Spot Bay, do you guys have any last questions? I have another minute. If anyone wants to ask a question, you are welcome to ask away.
Why do the groupers only spawn on full moons?
Say that again.
Why do groupers only spawn on full moons?
Oh, great. So the question was, why do grouper always spawn on the full moon? That's an excellent question. There's a lot of theories. What we think is, you know that the moon and the currents and the tide are connected, right? So we think that the full moon has a really big impact on the way that the currents are working. And it just so happens that when the moon is full or near full in the winter, it makes sure that the gametes that are released are going to remain here close to Little Cayman shore rather than getting spread off out into the open ocean where they're going to get eaten. So we think that it has everything to do with making sure that they're spawning at just the right time to make sure that their babies will have the biggest chance of survival. Excellent question. All right, Spot Bay, do you have any more questions before we go? I see you in the back. We just need to unmute. There you go.
How big can a lobster grow?
Say that again.
How big can a lobster grow?
Oh, I don't know how big a lobster can grow. I will say I have seen lobsters about 3 feet, maybe about 3 feet big out there, which is pretty big. But when I go back, I will ask the scientist the biggest one that they've seen, and I'll post it on the blog for you. I do know that they're not quite as good when they get that big. I think they can get quite big, and they can also live quite a long time. Yes. Any other question before we go? Yeah, in the back.
Like why are there a lot of fish that go together like when they spawn? Like
Is the question, why do they get together when they spawn?
yeah.
Okay. Does anyone know what they usually behave like when they're not spawning?
No. If I
So usually, Nassau grouper are territorial, and they don't really like other groupers. So they spend most of their time by themselves, and they live in one little spot on the reef, and they protect that spot forever. That's where they live. So usually they're not together at all. So this is just that one time of the year where they'll all get together and they'll spawn. And what that does is it gives them the best chance of having new baby grouper survive and to replenish the population. So it's their strategy for helping them to continue to have new young baby grouper. But because they do that, it also makes it really easy for them to get fished, right? During the aggregation, which is one of the reasons that we're out here. So that's a great question. I think that's all the time that we have for today. I want to thank you guys all so much for being here. It was awesome. Spot Bay, you guys rock. Wonderful questions. Remember that I'm going to be posting on that blog again for the next couple of days, and I'll be posting the video that's being taken out at the spawning aggregation so that you can look at it. If you have any other questions, you are welcome to email me or to post them on the blog, and I'll answer those for you. So that's all that we have for today. Thank you guys so much for being here. Have an awesome day. Go Grouper Moon. Wonderful. Bye-bye, you guys.
Bye.